Hey, Quicksters. Welcome to Quick Take. I'm Susie along with James. Hi, James.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good, good, good. How are you?
Good. I thought I'd use our time today for selfish reasons.
All right.
I wish I could do the ha 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 ha, like the
Mwahaha.
evil laugh. Thank you. Can't do wah ha ha. I am doing a leadership session with 100 and almost 200 people, and they want me to help people think innovatively.
Okay.
And it's what's really interesting to me is there's so many companies that say we need it to think in innovation, and it's like such a buzzword, but the application of it is not always something that people think about. They like put it on their mission or vision or their goal is to be innovative thinkers, but
Right.
the application of it is different. And so I'm approaching it by one, thinking about yourself, like the mindset, be aware of your mindset, growth mindset kind of thing, self-awareness, understanding like how you're moving into things. And then talking a bit about team dynamics and what happens with teams when they get that set mindset or group think and how do you break
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
those aspects. And then culturally, how do you support that? The psychological safety, how do you make it okay to fail fast? How do you all of those things? And I just think it's really interesting that people understand those concepts, but I thought it'd be interesting for us to talk about what does that look like in real life?
Part of me thinks that you're kind of setting it up wrong. I mean, everything you described is really totally applicable and is a great way to ensure an organization executes. I felt like those were great strategies and approaches to execution, but I don't think those were necessarily specific to innovation.
Oh, tell me more.
Well, I feel like, there was a really interesting study. I guess he was a designer of some kind in the automotive industry. And he actually was the designer or the architect of the commercial Hummer. So obviously the Hummer was a military vehicle, was very popular during, I guess that was the Desert Storm, I suppose, maybe back then. And
Yeah.
and then GM decided to make a commercial version. That obviously a car that exists can be deviated and changed into lots of things. So they were trying to figure out how to what that car should look like. The article I read was about this guy who basically got volunteers and they took them into a shopping mall or some place where they could do like a group survey kind of, you have big conference tables and chairs and bad donuts and you ask a series of questions. And so like most group events like that, they did all those things. And they spent a lot of time asking all these questions that just took up time and it
Yeah.
really ultimately tried to make them tired. Then he made everyone take a nap. And then when he woke them up, immediately after he woke them up, that's when he started asking questions about the car. And the research showed that by pulling them out of the moment and out of the sleep and immediately interrogating them, it put their mind in a different place. And I never forgot that. And I always think about how truly innovative thinkers are the ones that work really hard to get themselves into a different mindset and then work around that. How do I get that innovative thinking? How do I track that innovative thinking? How do I execute on that innovative thinking? But it's that creation of a situation in which your brain is functioning differently than it does on a daily basis. And I think that's an important element of innovation.
How would you design that within a company?
Well, I think, famously Google did that in some regard. There were things like, you had a certain percentage of your time that was supposed to go to creative or outside
Yeah.
thinking. There were, the Google campus says, and, many places Google started it. Certainly, I know BlackRock had it. I know that Comcast has it where, they have these creative spaces or areas where you can go and have quiet time or just play card games. I think that was really the genesis of the ping pong table was getting you to a place where your brain was thinking differently. And I think culturally you had to find a way to allow your people to see the forest through the trees.
It is interesting. I wonder how many leaders spend time considering how do I get my team in this different conditions, or they
Yeah.
just go through I think that maybe that's the problem is we're so set in our kind of like meeting to meeting. This is how
Mm,
we do it. This is the agenda. This is how I run my one-on-ones. And it just becomes this regular thing. And that's why we limit our ability to think innovatively because we're so set in our ways.
yeah. Yeah, I think you get caught up in the back-to-back meeting and the insanity of it. You know, we've talked about how we fetish the overworked mindset, and I think that unless we have a culture or a leader or a ceremony or something that breaks that cycle, and I mean, it has to break it on a daily basis, you know, at a daily level. It can't like, "Oh, look, it's creative 3rd day of the month," or whatever, you know, it just doesn't work that way. You've gotta create a situation in which people can get their heads in a different area.
And it doesn't just apply to a product or
No,
a
no,
system. It could be the way we're approaching this workflow or the way we design project management within our company or the way we create proposals
anything.
for
Everything
yeah.
everything is better with a little bit of fresh air. That's the bumper sticker today. It's just a matter of how do you get that to happen? It's so hard to do that, and I think, you know, it's funny, you see companies try to make that happen in meetings and stuff, and you still see those people in the room that are ignoring it. "Oh, I'm just gonna do
Mhm.
I'll just do email really quick.
Yeah.
Why we're supposed to be turning our brains off, I'm gonna go do this." And so it's not just like the big bad boss marching at him from the corner office saying, "Work harder," and everybody's dying to be creative. The employee and the employer are both culpable in this. But there's gotta be a means and a method to get you to be more provoked in your thinking.
It can't be a one and done. It's just like doing a team event and I come in and it's a rah-rah and everybody loves each other when you leave and you learn more insights about how to work better with one another. But if you don't make commitments and apply it into the everyday,
Mhm.
you just kinda click back into the normal. So
Yeah.
even setting those conditions and having a conversation about it doesn't mean that that's it. You have to then commit to, then we're gonna try it and stick with it and do it differently this way, which is also difficult to do when the rest of what you have to get
Yeah, you have to
done
get the
still
work
has to
done.
get done.
One of the other artifacts that I've seen work with success is the little black book. If I take what you're describing and build on that, which is we have the work to do, we have, you know, we have a head down mindset. We've got to get ready for the proposal. We've got the big board meeting. We've got whatever. I don't have time for this, you know, this goofy thing that James is describing, which is, you know, a Zen garden session with some hot tea. But we can have moments of brilliance. And if nothing else, capturing those in the little black book. So many people that I've known over the years who have been seen as those truly creative innovators always had somewhere they could write those things down. They could quickly just jot it and keep that so that that brilliant moment wasn't lost. Certainly, it was always somewhere different. It was never in their, you know, in their daily note keeper or whatever. It had to be in
Yeah,
a special place because it was ceremonial. But it was a means by which they could recognize that as a creative moment, capture that in a time and space where we don't have a lot of time and space. I don't really recommend you have that little device that helps you remember to be creative.
to make that space. So have we've talked about a portfolio, an
Mhm.
innovative portfolio or
Yep.
things that identifying what areas of what you do you need to spend time thinking about being more innovative.
You know, the portfolio, yes, gosh, thank you for remembering that portfolio idea. That was brilliant. I think the portfolio is more of a place where you can showcase the work you've done. What I'm saying is that when you're stuck at the elevator for the 3rd time because it's lunchtime and you can't get up to your floor and you have this idea for a XYZ,
Yeah,
you should have a place to put that. And that's less of a portfolio and more of a just an epiphany scratch pad that allows you to keep those things together. And you may not look at it for a month, but you can remind yourself of those great ideas if you capture them. That's all I'm
yeah.
saying.
Because innovation really is about being creative on how you approach something that you do regularly or that you need to improve, something that's gonna
Yeah.
improve. I guess it is. It's all about improvement of whatever you're facing, whether it's a workflow, a project, a product,
Well, it's
all
it's
those
it's
things.
looking at it differently, right?
Mhm.
Maybe not improving necessarily. I just think, sometimes I like to have a solution in mind and then look at it differently, and it reinforces it, right?
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
think that's what we could talk about lots of ways you can do that. I mean, having that diversity and perspective is valuable, whether it's you or someone else or whatever. It's a matter of how do you manifest that as best you can.
Well, I think what we're proving in this discussion is that it's important to talk about what is innovation and what's important about it in the organization with your team. Don't just assume everybody sees it from your lens. Talk about it, come up with ideas that you can innovate more frequently with one another.
I go back to the way you started the conversation by saying you have this event and this is kind of your thinking. I would be interested in like just really interrogating that very thought. What is innovation for you? And
Mhm.
I'd bet, a pound of donuts, a pound, a dozen donuts. Can you buy donuts by the pound? I would like to
Count.
know that. I'm sure I can. I'd bet that that innovation in that dialogue would be not that interesting. It's like, well, we could do exactly what we're doing, but 2% better. No, we're talking radical ideas. We're talking thinking
Yeah.
about things in a way that you never conceived of. I love that you so often hear really great thinkers and leaders say, it came to me in the shower,
Yeah.
right? Because what do they do? You're not thinking about the office in the shower. You're thinking about whether or not you need to wash your hair. And so that's the moment that your brain is just like those folks, in the shopping mall working on the design of the Hummer after their that quick nap is where they've let go so they can re-grab it. If you're thinking about how do you get people to behave and think about innovation, it's really how do you get their brains to turn off?
Here's a good example. I've mentioned this before, working with a senior team, talking about their strategy for the next year, and they have tell them to think big. What are you gonna do?
Mhm.
And
Yep,
really
yep.
think big. And then they present, and then you say to them, "Now double those results. What are
Right.
you gonna
Yes,
do?"
yes, yes. That is
And
such a
at
great.
first, they are paralyzed by, "I've already stretched, what do you mean?" But
Right,
if
right,
you're
right, right.
if you have to think like that, you can come up, yes, it might cost money, you may need more resources. There's not limits around it, don't have
Mhm.
limits around it, but expand the way you're thinking so that you can look at a world that way, and
Yeah.
then maybe your end is not that big, maybe you bounce halfway back.
I think we're kind of circling the same idea, which is we want people's brains to be in an uncomfortable state so that they can
Mhm.
think about things differently. And that's
Yeah.
the challenge is how do I, get comfortable with the uncomfortable?
That's exactly right, because it takes time and
Mhm.
it takes effort,
That's right.
and those are the things, and it's uncomfortable.
Yeah. And it's not the part of it every day. So you have to deviate from your standard process to get to that point. So very
And
interesting.
at first blush, it sounds sexy. That's the problem. It's challenging.
Not easy.
I don't know that I have the answers on exactly how I'm gonna approach it, so no thanks to that, but this is an interesting conversation, I think
That was a good
there's
topic.
definitely value for. Thanks, James.
Thank you.